We're ready, Mayor.
Okay. Good evening. I would like to welcome Billy Lowe, who will lead us in tonight's invocation.
Thank you. In light of some of the events that happened today, I asked the mayor if I could read a passage of scripture and pray for us. Passage of scripture, if you are a follower of Jesus, is pretty familiar. It comes out of Revelation 21. It's a vision of what John sees as a new heavens, new earth. He said, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw a holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away.'" The famous writer J.R.R. Tolkien once said that one day God is going to make all the sad things become untrue. Obviously, with another school shooting, this is a day that we should mourn, and we should recognize that, one, we live in a blessed community, and two, that this can happen anywhere. So we want to pray that the Lord will protect the families that are going through tragedy. We want to pray that God will protect our community. And let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for that vision that one day you will reach down and you will wipe away every tear from our eyes, that death will be no more, that the mourning that is happening right now in Winder, Georgia would be comforted in ways that we don't even know how. Father, we pray that you would do something supernatural. God, we pray for healing. We pray and we grieve for families that are hurting. Lord, we pray for the victims and the evil, senseless crimes that continue to show up in our country, Lord, that you would stop the tragedies. Lord, we thank you that we live in a city that is safe. I thank you for this city council, for our police officers, our firefighters, for our mayor, and for this city, for the hard work that they do, the thankless jobs that they have. Lord, we ask, humbly and boldly ask, that you would continue to show us grace and mercy here. We ask that you would bless this place, that you would be a hedge of protection for our children and for this community. So, Father, as they conduct their business tonight, may they be honoring to you. And Lord, would you be honored by us? We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor
Thank you
Lowe.
very much.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024 to order. The city encourages you to review tonight's agenda carefully. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. As the mayor mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card. And if you have not submitted one yet to me, you can please bring it to me now. If you are representing an organization, a notarized affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. Mayor and Council, as I call roll this evening for the September 4th, 2024 regular City Council meeting, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Juliette Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jacobus. For the record, Councilmember Phil Cranmer is absent. Mayor, you do have a quorum. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is approval of the meeting agenda. I would like to add an executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and pending litigation. Do I have a motion on that approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve adding an executive session to the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Verhoff and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve the meeting agenda with the addition of executive session. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Next is general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
Mayor, we have two.
Okay. General public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address and organization, if applicable, for the record. If you will please call the first public comment. And
Mayor, thank you. I want to remind everyone that general public comment does allot members of the public to speak for 5 minutes. I will announce when 1 minute remains and will notify you when the time has expired. I would like to invite Michelle Beeler to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Billiard at 3131 Commonwealth Way in Milton. And I would like to just bring to your attention that the Hopewell Middle School morning and afternoon walkers have been met with a lot of distracted drivers that are turning on and off of Webb Road onto Cogburn and vice versa. That intersection of Cogburn and Webb has really proven that we could really benefit from having a crossing guard of some sort. We've already reached out, and the Milton Police have been watching the area, and Public Works have been trying to figure out about trying to make the crosswalk a little bit more visible, but we've still not seen a whole lot in that way of moving forward. Additionally, we've looked into trying to get some of the parents to be crossing guards, but trying to find any of that information online has been challenging, to say the least. And if there was a way to make that a little bit more streamlined, then the public could come forward and actually do more in accordance with helping keep those students safe, because we want to make sure that those students stay safe before there's a tragedy that prompts immediate attention.
thank you. This is usually not a time where we have back and forth, but I'll tell you, thank you for that. And we'll have our city manager reach out to you to see if we can get something going on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You'll please call the next speaker.
I'd like to invite Mr. John Lundstedt to the podium, please.
John Lundstedt, 15755 Burdette Court. Want to talk about the Deerfield property. And apparently I've kicked a hornet's nest, which is Hopewell baseball. So let's talk about some facts. We have 20 acres at Deerfield. Everybody here, everybody in the city of Milton would love 50 acres out somewhere where it's not going to interfere with horse farms, where it's not going to be an issue with traffic, lights, noise with neighborhoods. But we have 20 acres. So our responsibility as a city and as leaders is to maximize and optimize those 20 acres. And what is our number one need? It's fields. Everything else is nice to have. So it's our responsibility to maximize and optimize playing fields. So some more facts. Baseball plays on the rectangles at Bell. It's a fact. We've all seen it. So let me give you another example. 2 Saturdays ago, I was at Bell, and it was a beautiful Bell Saturday. The baseball fields were full. There was flag football on the lower rectangle. On the upper rectangle, a whole bunch of lacrosse teams. And there was a boy practicing baseball on that temporary pitcher's mound in the corner of the rectangle at Bell, which is great. We're optimizing the space on the rectangles. Now, it is a fact when nobody is playing baseball, when Hopewell baseball is not being played, those triangles are empty. No other sport, no other activity, no other conditioning happens in those triangles. So I'll give you an example where this comes up. So my daughter teaches lacrosse lessons, and a lot of the girls in the community do that. They've come up through our club teams. They play for Milton and Cambridge. The younger girls want to be like them. They see them going to college. So she teaches lessons like a bunch of girls at Bell. So 2 Thursdays ago, it was crowded. So she had to double up on a goal there, which isn't great, right? Especially teaching a lesson. So this past Thursday, she decided to do it in our backyard. So we have a lot of room, and it worked. But what she didn't do is go 100 yards to the west and take a goal out to that triangle, which was wide open at Bell, and practice lacrosse. Why don't we do that? Why aren't we even considering it? So I have an example, and I know you can't see this too well, but this is a facility called Diamond Nation, and this is in Fleming, New Jersey. And 2 times a year, my daughter and a lot of the girls in the community, including the daughters of 2 sitting members of the current Parks and Rec board, they play in a tournament here called Fall Draw. It's very popular. So if you look at this facility, it's got some baseball fields, but it's got fields in the middle that are multi-purpose. It's designed in such a way that you can play baseball on that field, you can play softball on that field, and when you're not playing baseball and softball, you can play lacrosse, you can play football, you can play soccer, you can play all sorts of other sports. So why aren't we considering that? So several of you live on or you operate horse farms, right? So if I told you that for a third of your land, you can only use it 40% of the time, and the rest of the time you can't use it for anything else, you tell me I'm crazy, right? So it is our job and it's our responsibility to optimize the use of those fields. Now, people have come up and they said, oh, triangles on rectangles won't work, but we have it already. We have it at Bell, we have it at Legacy. Now, there may be some concerns or issues with it. So here's what I'm saying. And I know some of you are directly or indirectly connected with Hopewell baseball. I have never said get rid of baseball fields at Deerfield. I have never said that. I have always said repurpose 2 of the fields, put them on a rectangle. You'll still have the 4 baseball fields. You'll still have dedicated baseball fields, but you'll add rectangles. We're going to optimize that space for what we need the most. But I have never said get rid of baseball fields. That is false. And then finally, several people have said triangles on rectangles won't work, but I have never heard why. So you have my phone number. What I'd really like is a phone call just to tell me why. What are the reasons why a triangle on a rectangle won't work? Why wouldn't we try to optimize the space for multiple sports so that we can do baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, that sort of thing? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes general public comment.
Okay, we will move on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, item A is approval of the August 5th, 2024 special called City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 24251. B is approval of the August 5th, 2024 regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 24252. And C is approval of the August 19th, 2024 regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 24253. D is approval of the financial statements and investment report for period ending July 31st, 2024. Agenda item number 24254. E is approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Bounce House Inflatables of Atlanta LLC. It's doing business as Bounce House Atlanta regarding children's activities for Crabapple Fest 2024. It's agenda item number 24255. Next is approval of a services agreement between the City of Milton and and S&S Security Sales Corporation doing business as Flylock Security Solutions for the installation of overhead automatic door openers at Milton City Hall. It's agenda item number 24256. G is approval of a services agreement between the City of Milton and American Alarm Corporation for alarm monitoring services for city elevator, fire, and burglar systems. It's agenda item number 24257. H is approval for the submission of a grant to the Georgia Emergency Management Agency for the purchase of a replacement emergency generator at Station 43. Agenda item number 24258. I is approval of a change order number 1 to software as a service agreement and addendum number 1 between the City of Milton and GovernmentJobs.com, Inc. It's doing business as NeoGov for the addition of a complete HRIS suite. It's agenda item number 24259. Next is approval of a recreation provider agreement between the City of Milton and Tim Bowen doing business as Playwell Technologies to provide recreational STEM Lego programming. It's agenda item number 24260. Our final consent agenda item is approval of a construction services agreement with Spectrum Fence Company to construct a new perimeter fence along the road frontage of Legacy Park. Agenda item number 24261. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilor Haney to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. We will move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please call the item?
Mayor, that item is a proclamation promoting mental wellness, emotional intelligence, and suicide prevention in Milton. Mayor Jameson?
Thank you. So I believe this is our 6th, 7th year of doing this proclamation. We've partnered with the LRJ Foundation for many, many years. They've done wonderful stuff here in the community. We have Teresa Rusby here, who is the co-founder and executive director. Thank you for all that you do for not only the organization, but the community as well. After I read the proclamation, we'll all come up and we'll take a picture to promote you. So thank you for coming out. So this proclamation is promoting mental wellness, emotional intelligence, and suicide prevention in Milton. Whereas the city annually recognizes every September as Milton Mental Wellness Month as part of our efforts to shine a spotlight on many people's challenges as well as resources and support for them. And whereas people of all ages, of all types, and of all places, including here in Milton, suffer daily from conditions such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other disorders that impact their lives. And whereas helping remove stigmas associated with such issues and helping those struggling with them realize that they are not alone can change and in some cases save lives. And whereas knowing suicide is a leading cause of death, the city joins millions in recognizing September 10th as World Suicide Prevention Day and September 8th through the 14th as National Suicide Prevention Week. And whereas Milton is also committed to doing what it can to provide support and resources to those with mental health issues and their loved ones. And whereas that includes a dedicated webpage, miltonga.gov/mental wellness, and our continued collaboration with the LRJ Foundation. And whereas this nonprofit will partner with the city on September 12th for its annual public webinar, this one with a theme of enhancing one's emotional intelligence to empower yourself and others. And whereas we are stronger as a community when there's authentic awareness, candid conversations, and a culture of acceptance and support. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, proclaim September 8th to the 14th as Suicide Prevention Week and September as Milton Mental Wellness Month. And we will further demonstrate our commitment to our citizens' well-being by partnering with the LRJ Foundation on a September 12th webinar and a mental wellness educational campaign throughout the month of September. And this is given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia on this 4th day of September of 2024. Thank you.
Step here.
Mayor. Mayor.
You like that, Savvy? Ready? 3, 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, girls.
Okay, we will move on to the first presentation. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
That first item is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt amendments to the fiscal 2024 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It's agenda item number 24262. B, is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt the fiscal 2025 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, appropriating the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It's agenda item number 24263. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on the first presentation items?
Make a motion to approve agenda item 24-262.
Second.
We're going to have two agenda items on that first presentation items. So you can just say like first presentation.
First presentation, agenda item 24-262.
Second.
We have,
And
there's two items on.
Oh, you want me to add 263 as well?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Approval of agenda item 24-262 and agenda item 24-263.
I have a motion from Councilor Jacobus and a second from Councilor Cookerly to approve both first presentation items as read. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Okay, we will move on to the public hearing. Will City Clerk please sound the item?
Mayor, that item A is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Lily Sushi Bar in Milton. It's at 1865 Heritage Walk here in Milton, and it's agenda item number 24264. Our Finance Director, Ms. Karen Ellis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have one alcohol beverage license this evening for a public hearing. It is for Lily Sushi Bar Milton. It's located at 1865 Heritage Walk. That's the previous location for Dua Vietnamese. They're requesting consumption on premises for wine, malt beverage, and distilled spirits. This was advertised in the Milton Herald on August 22nd and August 29th of 2024. Here is the location in regards to other alcoholic beverage license holders within the Heritage Walk area. This will be a full-service restaurant and meets the at least 40% of gross square footage requirements. Gross square footage came in at 3,090 square feet with a seating area of 1,382 square feet, meeting 45% of the gross square footage. This will also be an eating establishment and derives a minimum of 50% of its total gross food and beverage sales from the sale of prepared food or meals. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Ms. Karen? Any public comment on this?
There are none, sir.
Okay, I'll close the public comment portion. And
Oh, I was just wondering when they're opening.
I don't have that.
I think I asked that question to the landlord, I think like in 30 days.
I can find out though.
In 30 days?
I think so.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's great.
Any other questions? Okay, I will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 24-264.
Second.
Okay, have a motion from Councilor Haney and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve agenda item number 24-264. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Mayor, that next item is discussion of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia to adopt amendments to the fiscal 2024 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It's also going to include the discussion of the use of additional occupational tax revenue. It's agenda item number 24262. Our Deputy City Manager, Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are here to discuss the second round of proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. The budget for this fiscal year was approved on September 18th, 2023, and initial amendments were adopted on April 8th, 2024. The amendment packet before you represents adjustments that will amend line items to carry out projections through the end of the fiscal year on September 30th, 2024. This is the sole public hearing that will be held on this agenda item, and consideration of approval will be before you under unfinished business on Monday, September 16th. Before you is the general fund budget summary. You will see the original adopted figures on the left, as well as the first set of amendments approved back in April under the current budget column, followed by the requested amendments that we will discuss today, and finally the amended budget should the request before you be approved at the next regularly scheduled meeting. The amended revenues for fiscal year 2024 are shown at $46.2 million after requested amendments totaling $869,347 across several categories, which we'll go over in more detail in just a moment. Moving down to the expenditure summary, you will see the amended budget at $49 million, including operating transfers out to other funds. 91% of the total of the $1 million amendments are associated with transfers out to other funds, $600,000 of which will go to the Capital Projects Fund to support the city's pay-as-you-go capital improvement plan, and $323,718 will go to the Impact Fees Fund in relation to credits issued for work completed by developers as part of the Impact Fee Program system improvements. We'll go over the details of these amendments as well as the transfers later in this presentation. If these amendments are approved as presented, the projected general fund balance will be $11,884,700, which puts the city in line with the fund balance requirements of 25% of the subsequent year's revenues. Any revenues which exceed this forecast or expenditures which come in under this projection will be taken into consideration for one-time projects in the budget amendment process for fiscal year 2025. At this time, I will go over the more significant changes to anticipated revenues for fiscal year 24. There is a request to increase investment income anticipations by $300,000 due to idle fund availability coupled with interest ratings being maintained at higher rates longer than originally anticipated. This has also impacted investment income revenues in other funds, including the ARPA fund, which has resulted in a $153,745 of the total adjustment of $161,745 transfer in from that fund seen in this amendment at the bottom. The other $8,000 makes up the total $161,745 is associated with ARPA eligible spending related to the annual single audit of federal government grant spending related funds. You'll see a corresponding increase to the finance budget to recognize those funds later in the presentation. There's also an adjustment to current year real property taxes in the amount of $145,000 related to supplemental billing and collection forecasts. There's also a request to decrease revenues related to business and occupation taxes in the amount of $100,000, which reflects collection trends at this time. Even with the anticipated decrease to occupational taxes, total occupational tax collections in fiscal year 24 are projected to surpass those collections from FY23 as seen in this chart. Anytime a government's current year occupational tax collections will exceed the previous year's collections, we must include a conversation of how to utilize these funds in a public hearing. In the proposed amendments, staff have included these additional revenues in the transfer out to the Capital Projects Fund to support the city's pay-as-you-go funding of one-time projects. That concludes the highlights of the revenue amendments for this current fiscal year. If anyone has any questions on the revenues before I move on to the expenditures, I can answer those now. The initial request you see in the City Clerk Department pertains to the employee benefits category to true up the budget to actual expenses incurred. Throughout the amendments, you will see certain departments having similar amendment requests associated with the employee benefits category. As you may recall, Milton has historically budgeted for an anticipated average cost per employee and does an end-of-year true-up to account for actual costs across departments. We have made adjustments to this approach in fiscal year 25 that we will discuss in the next public hearing. Overall benefit expenses for fiscal year 24 are projected to come in lower than anticipated across the city, so none of these entries are indicative of the need for additional funding in any way. The City Clerk Department also includes a request for $20,000 that will go towards the quote provided to codify the Uniform Development Code recently passed by Council. The city was moved to an annual contract within this past year, but the codification of the UDC was not part of that contracted price. The next few requests relate to the employee benefits true-up we just discussed. You will also see $159 requests in the Elections Department to cover workers' compensation coverage associated with the election staff. Finance has requested that $8,000 that will recognize the ARPA transfer in we just discussed in the revenue section. On this page, you'll also see a $55,000 request in the Legal Department associated with higher than anticipated legal fees in fiscal year 2024. On this page, the Police Department is recognizing the budget associated with the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant to offset body armor expenses in the amount of $5,540. Additionally, Fire is recognizing $16,200 in insurance proceeds that will offset storm damages from a lightning strike. Both of these have corresponding increases in the revenue amendment request as well. Staff is requesting $600,000 as a transfer to the Capital Projects Fund, including $41,000 from the sale of a Pierce pumper that will go back into Fire's Apparatus Replacement Fund, and the remainder in PAYGO funding to partially fund the Deerfield Implementation Plan contract work, land acquisition, and the installation of a gate at the public safety complex. You will also see the request for $323,718 that we spoke about earlier for the impact fee fund related to those system improvements completed by the developers. And lastly, you will see the release of contingency funds that will go towards funding requests like the codification of the UDC that is not covered by an alternate direct funding source. That concludes the funding request for the general fund, but before we move on to any of the other funds, do you have any other questions? Just quickly wanted to touch on our staffing summary before we move on also. Staff has included this chart to show the positions that were requested in the original adopted budget for fiscal year '24, as well as those that were included in the first amendment approved in April. In the column for amendment number 2, you will see the recognition of the full-time firefighter position that was approved via resolution back in May. This position is filling a staffing need while one of our firefighters is on extended military leave. This position will ultimately become one of the 12 full-time positions that will staff Fire Station 45. This is just the formal recognition of that position in the staffing count and is not an additional request at this time. Next, you'll see one full-time position request in the Community Development Department. This is for the Director of Special Projects position that Bob Buscemi has transitioned to as part of the overall focus on the Deerfield Implementation Plan. We are currently utilizing a contract approach to filling the Community Development Director position, which was able to be funded in fiscal year '24 with a transfer from salaries due to vacancies experienced in the department. So there's no funding needs in '24, but this request will cover FY 2025, which you will see a full year of funding for both positions requested in the headcount adjustment. Finally, you will see a reduction of one part-time position in municipal court. Along with the approval of the shared IGA position for an administrative assistant, police and court have been able to work together to fulfill the remaining needs that the bailiff position was intended for. This is a formal removal of that staff position, and if circumstances change in either department that require looking at this in the future, staff will bring forth a formal position request at that time. Okay, moving on to our special revenue funds. Head is to the Special Events Fund as associated with the recognition of event sponsorships revenues, as well as hotel motel tax revenue coming in slightly lower than anticipated. You will see a corresponding recognition in both the Special Events Fund as well as the hotel motel tax fund for this $5,000 adjustment, including the transfer between the two funds. The Georgia Chart of Accounts is requiring jurisdictions that have taken part in the opioid settlements to recognize related revenues and expenses in a separate special revenue fund for ease of tracking. Here you will see the recognition of revenues in FY '24, as well as the allocation of those funds and the fund balance from '23 towards the supplies category and fire to be spent on authorized purchases. Finance is working with fire, police, and court to ensure our purchases comply with the guidance that has been provided. The operating grant fund amendment is related to the investment income and remaining funds from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council grant received by the Milton Police Department that are being transferred to the general fund as related work is now complete and the fund has no additional activity anticipated. On this page, you will see amendments associated with the American Rescue Plan Act eligible spending. There's an increase in revenue to recognize the availability of funding as well as investment income that is coming in higher than anticipated in fiscal year 2024. You will also see the transfer out to the general fund of that $161,745 that we went over earlier, as well as $215,602 to the Capital Projects Fund to reimburse the fund for ARPA eligible expenses, including equipment for the quick response vehicle, storm drain and curb and gutter repairs, as well as eligible stormwater and hydrology expenses at MCPP incurred in fiscal year '24. That wraps up our special revenue funds. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to capital projects? In the revenue section, you will see recognition of tree recompense funds as well as transfers in from the general fund and ARPA funds that we have already gone over. In the expenditure section, there are requests outlined to recognize funding needed to purchase and install a gate at the public safety complex, the transfer in of proceeds from the sale of the Pierce pumper, as well as the ARPA funds for eligible equipment for the quick response vehicle and stormwater maintenance expenses. On this page, you can see the transfer of funds from certain parks and recreation accounts to fund land acquisition for Deerfield and Arnold Mill, as well as funding for the design and construction work related to the building of a new active athletic complex. You will also see the funding request for the Deerfield Implementation Plan, recognition of those tree recompense funds from the end of fiscal year 23 and to date in 24, and the release of contingency funds to support some of the funding requests we just detailed. Lastly, you will see a request of the transfer of $525,539 from the Milton City Park and Preserve Capital Projects account over to the Milton City Parks and Preserve Capital Grant account to account for the local match on the GOSP grant. This is not a request for additional funds. It is merely a recognition of the funds in the correct account now that the grant has been approved. Before we move on to the remaining funds, I would like to take a minute and provide a brief update to the cost projections for Fire Station 45. Fire and Public Works staff have been working with our team from MSSA PBK and Cooper and Company to finalize costs as quotes for subcontracted work are yielding prices that reflect no change in the inflation that we saw during the reconstruction of Fire Station 42. Final quotes have resulted in a per square foot price closer to what was incurred at Fire Station 42 than we originally anticipated. Staff has compared these quotes to those experienced by other jurisdictions, and even communities without the design standards required in Milton are seeing similar prices. The net result will be the need for an additional approximately $736,000 in the project account. This will bring the project total, including furniture, fixtures, and equipment, to $7.6 million from the forecasted $6.9 million previously approved. The figures came in past the deadline for this budget amendment, and as this figure includes contingency funding and that may not be incurred, we are going to present the final request for funds in the spring when we have the amended fiscal year 2025 budget. But we wanted to keep you informed on what we are experiencing as this build out, so it does not come as a surprise near the final months of construction. In the Green Space Bond Fund, we are updating anticipations for tax-related revenues, which will be taken into consideration when calculating the required millage rate for debt service in future years, as well as a correction to or an update to the anticipated investment income and corresponding adjustment to the land conservation account, forecasting a total of $5.6 million in available funds for green space acquisition. In the T-SPLOST fund, you can see the allocation of higher than anticipated tax collections, investment income, and IGA funding being allocated towards eligible projects. You will also see a request to allocate some of the current T-SPLOST 2 collections to the program management account for infrastructure as a placeholder until additional projects are authorized by council. The majority of the fund balance in the T-SPLOST fund is restricted for impact fee eligible projects, which are part of the credits issued to the developers for the system improvements completed that we talked about earlier. And here in our capital grant fund, you'll see revenue adjustments and expenditure allocations related to element supplemental funding coming in from the state higher than we originally were forecasted. And we also have that recognition of the incoming money and the allocation of the for the MCPP local match portion of the grant funded project. Impact fees in fiscal year 24 are coming in lower than anticipated. This is due to the timing of when developers pay fees. Fees are primarily assessed at the time of the application for a building permit, and payments can be made no earlier than the issuance of a building permit and no later than the issuance of an interior finishes permit or a certificate of occupancy for the building or building shell. And here you have amendments related to these reductions in anticipated revenues across projects in the applicable departments, as well as the transfer of those funds from the general fund related to the developer impact fee credits issued that'll go towards public works road projects. And our final amendment for this evening is in the revenue bond fund, where we are recognizing the alerting system project coming in under budget and a release of those funds. After our final audit of this bond, any remaining funds will go towards future debt service payments. So that's where that money will be recouped. And I'll be happy to answer any questions should you have them, but those are our amendments for fiscal year 24. And this will be our one and only public hearing.
Any questions for Bernadette? All right, we will not vote on this tonight. We'll vote on it on 9/16. Any public comment on this?
There are none, sir.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and then we will, I'll ask you to sound the next item.
Okay. That next item is discussion of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt the fiscal 2025 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, appropriating the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. The first public hearing is tonight's meeting, and the second public hearing will be at the 9/16 regular city council meeting. It's agenda item number 24263. Bernadette?
Okay, Mayor and Council. This is our presentation for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025, which will cover revenue collections and spending from October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. Staff has presented a series of 4 input and feedback sessions, as well as the draft budget in its entirety at the work session on August 12th, which included a detailed look at continuing operation costs as well as new initiatives. Tonight is the first of 2 public hearings that we will hold on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025. Once the budget is approved, staff will complete work on the official budget book. Milton has received the Distinguished Budget Award from GFOA every year since fiscal year 2019 when it initially applied. This past year, our team also won special recognition, meaning we earned the top score from all 3 reviewers on our strategic goals and strategies and performance measures. We continue making strides towards communicating our intentions as well as our outcomes to our community, and this has been a very meaningful recognition for our team. Tonight, we will present a high-level overview, and we'll be happy to address any questions you may have in more detail, so please stop me at any time throughout the presentation if you'd like additional information. Before you, we have the consolidated budget summary, which includes all budgeted funds as well as those carrying a fund balance. We have the general fund, which accounts for all operating activity that is not required to be separated out into a special revenue fund. We have 6 special revenue funds, which are required to account for specific revenue sources and their corresponding spending activity, and 6 capital projects funds, which account for capital-related projects and purchases. The citywide budget, including budgeted spending across all funds, is approximately $71 million. Please keep in mind that all capital projects funds are budgeted on a project length basis, and any unspent funds in the PAYGO program will carry over into the next fiscal year as part of the city's capital improvement plan. Just a reminder that all budget requests must tie back to the city planning process and our strategic goals as outlined in each year's budget book. Each plan that guides spending requests has received public input and has been adopted by council. We have plans including the 5-year strategic plan, the comprehensive plan and its short-term work program, and other community development planning documents, transportation plans, the local road safety plan, pavement and stormwater plans, the T-SPLOST project list, the trail prioritization plan, other parks and recreation master plans, and department-specific strategic plans as well. Before you is the updated general fund budget summary. You can see the actual earning and spending activity for fiscal year 22 and 23, as well as the updated amended budget for fiscal year 24. Fiscal year 2024's figures include all of the amendments proposed in the previous public hearing. Since we have already gone over the 24 amendments in detail, this evening we will focus on the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget, which includes a few minor changes from the work session draft budget presentation, which include updating the transfer out to the special projects fund from the general fund of $7,350, and the reallocating of the projected health insurance costs by historic actuals as opposed to a per employee average. This should reduce the need for those interdepartmental true-ups at the end of the year that we just went over in the fiscal year 24 amendments, and will show a more accurate view of the anticipated costs year over year within each department. This change did not alter the bottom line on continuing operations in any way. It's just a change within the departments. With those updates taken into consideration, the overall revenue forecast remains at $47,288,882, with ongoing revenues increasing by $1.5 million or 3.3% from fiscal year 2024's updated amended budget, and total overall revenues increasing by $1.1 million or 2.4% when taking one-time transfers into consideration. Continuing operations excluding the required 1% contingency and new initiatives have increased by 8.7% compared to fiscal year 2024's amended budget. A key component to this increase is the requested 5% market adjustment to salaries placeholder that was selected based on the state and local government figures reported in the March 2024 Employment Cost Index put out by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that will be allocated based on the results of our compensation and classification study that is currently underway. This approach was discussed by Deputy City Manager Inglis during the presentations on the new employee performance management system last summer. The overall impact of these adjustments, including the impact to salary-dependent benefit calculations, is $857,107 across all staff of which $736,119, or 86%, is attributable to salaries and wages. When taking contingency and new maintenance and operating initiatives into consideration, the year-over-year variance is $4,335,557, or 13.1%. At the bottom of the summary, you will see the final projected fund balance at $12,302,900, which is in line with our required reserve policy of 25% of the subsequent year's revenues. Before you is the detailed revenue projections. As mentioned earlier, all current year property tax projections are based on the adopted millage rate of 4.389 mils. We went over all the revenues in detail back in August, so tonight I'll just ask if there's any questions before we move on to new initiatives. Nothing has changed since the budget workshop in August. Just as a reminder, all positions with the exception of Parks and Recreation, the Parks and Recreation Manager, and staffing for Fire Station 45 will be scheduled to begin on October 1st if approved by council. The former are funded to begin in July 2025, a few months in advance of the opening of the new fire station and the new active athletic complex on Deerfield Parkway. Here you can see both the request for 25 and the future year impacts for the next 4 years. Moving on to our special revenue funds, we have the Special Events Fund with updates to the anticipated revenues related to vendor fees and sponsorships for events, as well as the interfund transfers in, which include funding from the general fund in the amount of $46,882 and funding from the Hotel Motel Tax Fund in the amount of $65,000. Funding requests for events include changes that we went over in detail in August, which include additional events as well as enhancements to existing events that will be supported by the additional part-time position in Parks and Recreation. In the Opioid Settlements Fund, we have the forecasted revenues and related authorized spending in the amount of $25,000, which may change based on potential settlements in the future. Staff is working together to identify authorized purchases for these settlement funds and will be before council should any additional agreements come before us. The Confiscated Assets Fund has a $44,567 in fund balance that will be allocated once the police department has identified a suitable purchase that is authorized under the rules within this fund. And that will be done again in an amendment process in the future. The E911 Fund includes a transfer out of all earned revenue to the City of Alpharetta as part of our current IGA. Alpharetta uses these funds to provide dispatch services and facilities. Anticipated recognition of revenues and transfers in the ARPA fund are related to investment income earnings and authorized stormwater maintenance throughout the city and scheduled hydrology work at Milton City Park and Preserve. Here we have the capital improvement plan. It's in its entirety. We also have budget fund summaries by fund that show how the forecasted revenues and expenditures are allocated across each fund for fiscal year 2025. That's available in the packet. This shows our expected project costs, what we've previously allocated towards these projects, what's remaining in the fund balance, and what will be requested over the next 7-year plan, resulting in either a fully funded project or the potential need for funding beyond that 7-year horizon. Here we have the PAYGO funding requests zoomed in on across the entire 7-year capital improvement plan. The only change that has been made since the presentation in August is an adjustment to the PAYGO forecast in fiscal year 2028 for Providence Park in the amount of $100,000 and the Indoor Community Center in the amount of $75,000 to maintain a more consistent funding approach annually throughout the 7-year proposal. Does anyone have any questions about our PAYGO program or our capital projects? And then finally, our last item we'll review this evening is the new capital initiatives. There have been no changes to the capital initiatives since the budget workshop, but again, staff is happy to answer any questions you may have about these requests. And just a reminder that the basement build out is in the 7-year forecast, but there'll be no funding request in 25 for that project. That concludes our first of 2 public hearings on the new proposed budget for 25.
Thank you, Bernadette. Any questions for Bernadette? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
There are none, sir.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. We'll vote on this at a future meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the zoning agenda. Will City Clerk please read the zoning rules and sound the first item?
Zoning agenda will include items, rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances. In addition to ordinances, resolution, and text amendments, the applicant and all those speaking in support of the application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The opposition will also be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to review. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided time remains with the allotted time. Those called to speak will be taken in which the order the speaker cards were received. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and their recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council. The applicant shall not submit material to their council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should have already been submitted to the Community Development Department and is included in the normal distribution of the packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak on your point of view. Our first zoning item this evening is consideration of RZ 2402, U 2401, and VC 2401. It's 3499 and 3501 Bethany Bend by Sapient Minds LLC. It's doing business as Milton Montessori School to rezone from TR, Townhome Residential, with the revocation of a senior living use permit, to office institutional with a private school use permit. It's a 24,000 square feet with a total of 160 students in the associated activity outdoor area with a 3-part concurrent variance. To delete the 20-foot side setback along the south property line for 3501 Bethany Bend. To delete the 10-foot landscape strip along the south property line of 3501 Bethany Bend, and to reduce the sidewalk width along Bethany Bend within the city right-of-way from 6 feet to 5 feet. It's agenda item number 24244. Our interim community development director, Ms. Diane Wheeler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll wait for the presentation. There we go. This next item on the public hearing agenda concerns the property that you see outlined in red up on the screen, and it's located at Bethany Bend and Strickland Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone from townhouse residential with senior living use permit to office institution, and to develop a private school of 24,000 square feet with a total of 160 students. This is actually an extension of an existing Montessori school on an adjoining piece of property. In addition to that, there's a request for a 3-part concurrent variance. The first part to delete the 20-foot side setback along the south property line, then to delete the 10-foot landscape strip along the south property line, and finally to reduce the sidewalk width along Bethany Bend within the city's right-of-way from 6 feet to 5 feet. We have a graphic so you can see what that looks like. And you'll note that the first variance to delete the 20-foot side setback is in red. It's at the bottom of the screen, and it shows where that side setback would be. Then the landscape strip is in blue. That 10-foot is shown at the bottom of the screen as well. And removal of those is required because this will all be essentially one development, one property. And then the final variance request is to reduce the sidewalk along Bethany Bend from 6 feet to 5 feet, and that's that yellow line to the right of your screen. The applicant is the Milton Montessori School that has acquired the additional just over 5 acres of land on Bethany Bend. It's currently zoned townhouse residential. It has a senior living use permit, but they will like to change that to a private school use. It's on State Route 9 within the overlay district, and there are currently 2 single-family homes on the property that would be demolished as part of this request. The current zoning, the townhome residential, as you can see, the senior living use permit allows the 98 residential units on this property. It was approved in 2008. It would go away if this particular application is approved. The future land use map contemplates multifamily residential in anticipation of that townhouse residential zoning. The urban growth boundary shows this property right on the very edge, but it is within the urban growth boundary. And then surrounding, we have mostly residential. You see one development across the street. We have single-family detached immediately adjacent, and then some townhomes, various properties. This is the existing school just to the south of the property. And then we have Hidden Forest, another townhome development immediately west. And then again, more townhomes, and then additional multifamily development. So the site plan, as you can see, includes the existing property at the very, very bottom of the screen where you see that roundabout. And then the addition are the buildings and the parking that you see just at the furthest part of the site plan. There is that roundabout at the very top, and that is going to be the new entrance into the development with additional access point further south and an ingress at this end of the property. The existing school to the south, and this is where that attachment is made, as you saw in the previous plan, the development further along where you currently see a vacant home. The site photos shows you the existing school on the left and the vacant property on the right. This is looking along Bethany Bend, and then the structures to be demolished on the existing site. This is what the future project looks like, certainly an improvement over what's existing on the property now. As you can see, a very contemporary look with pitched roofs and a variety of different materials to match the existing building. The community zoning information was held June 26th, and no one was present from the public to make any comments. There was no one from the public at the Design Review Board meeting on July 9th, but the board did say that they would like to see the plan consolidated into one plan, the existing school and the proposed. They recommended denial of the third part of the variance request, which is the reduction in the width of the sidewalk. Planning Commission meeting also recommended approval of the applicant's request for the rezoning and the use permit, as well as two parts of the variance, and again, denial of that third part, which is the reduction of the sidewalk as well. The applicant did have a public participation meeting July 16th. No one from the public was there. City staff has reviewed these plans and has made some comments, including the arborist comment to demonstrate how the plan meets the tree ordinance. Engineering department says the hydrology study is sufficient. The fire marshal did not have any specific comments. Public Works had most of the comments. They want a detailed signage and striping plan for all three access points. The proposed access at Bethany and Strickland roundabout has to follow state and federal guidelines. The traffic report was for all the students, the existing and the proposed future students, of 310 total capacity for the property. And they requested that the applicant construct a 12-foot graded and grass shoulder along Bethany Bend along the entire frontage north of the existing driveway in lieu of that sidewalk that is normally required, which is 6 feet. Fulton County assessed the water and sewer requirements for the site. The environmental analysis was found to be sufficient. And then we looked at the standards for zoning review and found that this use is in fact suitable with adjacent and nearby uses. We also found that it would not, in our opinion, adversely affect the existing use or usability of the adjacent properties if the use is approved with the recommended conditions. The subject site may have a reasonable use as currently zoned with a senior living use permit. So the additional zoning would not necessarily be required for the site to be of use to the applicant. However, the school use should not have any significant impact on public service or utilities. And they may have some impact on existing streets, but those impacts can be mitigated. The proposed development is in fact less intensive than the previously approved senior living use permit. The school will also provide a valuable community service, and we know that because the existing school is expanding and needs additional space for additional students. There are change conditions in this area that support approval of a rezoning, such as new single-family development immediately north, mixed-use development under construction in Forsyth, the proposed roundabout to the east that allows that traffic flow that will accommodate the existing and additional traffic, and then the new interchange at Georgia 400 and McGinnis Ferry. The use permit, when we looked at that, we found that it is an extension of an existing school and it provides an appropriate transition. So it can be supported for that reason. It's also suitable with the adjacent and nearby developments. And we found that this particular application does not appear to violate any ordinances or regulations. The effect on the traffic flow, as I mentioned, can be mitigated with the improvements that will be made, and off-street parking, as is shown, is located on the side of the property, which is the appropriate location for the parking. There's a large amount of open space on this property, which helps buffer the residential that you see on the left side of the screen, a large amount of protective screening. Part of that is because of the 50-foot buffer required for the perennial stream that's on the property. And so we looked at the hours of operation and found that Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., Saturday 9 to 5 is consistent with what the school operating hours currently are. The applicant has not indicated any additional lighting that will be proposed on the site. And then the circulation pattern actually is improved with this plan because all of the stacking can occur on the site with the addition of that new roundabout that they didn't have access to before. The variances, you know, are based on 4 criteria and evidence to support those 4 criteria. And we found that based on that criteria, that deleting the 20-foot side setback along the south property line makes sense. And so we recommend approval of that Part 1 variance. We also recommend approval of Part 2 variance for the same reason. Part 3 variance, however, we recommend denial because of the request that Public Works has made for the alternate solution to that sidewalk. Our conclusion is that the proposed private school is an extension of the neighborhood zoning, provides an appropriate transition, and is an important use to this neighborhood, a good use to continue. We would recommend approval of the rezoning and the use, parts 1 and 2 of the variance. Recommend not approving part 3, and to revoke the senior living use permit in exchange for a private school use permit. The recommended conditions to go along with this approval would be to restrict the use of the property to a private school and associated accessory structures and uses, to restrict the number of students to 160 for a total population of students of 310, to restrict the hours of operation to Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., to make sure that the site plan is substantially compliant with the revised site plan submitted to the Community Development Department on June 28, 2024, with all the conditions being in place prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy. And then in lieu of sidewalk, developer shall construct a 12-foot graded and grass shoulder along Bethany Bend along the entire frontage north of the existing driveway to accommodate a future improvements constructed by a future city T-Splosh project, and to delete the 20-foot side setback along southern property line and delete the 10-foot landscape strip along the south property line. And that concludes our overview of this request. I'd be happy to answer questions, and of course, the applicant is here as well if you have questions.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant? Do we have any public comment for this?
Just the applicant is here.
Okay. If you'll go ahead and call him, that'd be great.
Okay. Mr. Ivan, I invite you to the podium.
And just a reminder, you'll have 10 minutes.
My name is Biju Ipan, 3505 Bethany Bend, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm the owner of the Milton Montessori School. First of all, I want to thank you, City of Milton, it's been 6 months. I've been working through all those things. We worked hard to where we are now. I personally don't have any questions, anything like that. And I appreciate all the help from everybody. But if you are interested, I can tell you a little bit of story about my business. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you. If we have any questions, we'll ask you.
All right,
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any opposition?
No, sir.
Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing, and obviously, if we have any questions, we can bring the applicant back up. Any questions for Ms. Wheeler? Or staff or anything?
My only question is, so the recommendation is basically to approve it as asked, as requested, with the exception of the sidewalk being, instead of going from 6 feet to 5 feet, you're removing it altogether and making it a 10 or 12-foot green strip, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And
That's
what,
correct.
and it said for future,
T-Splosh project that
Which
the
would be-
city would fund. 12-foot wide.
so and the city will fund that portion of it?
The city would build that. That
Okay.
is the request of Public Works.
Got it.
I'm assuming that's part of our T-Splosh trail that we're.
Yes, that's
connecting.
correct.
So I would ask council, this is our first zoning item in a long time, so I'd ask for council to make a motion, if it's going to be approved, to do the approval with staff's recommended conditions. And then do we need a denial on that one concurrent variance, Ken?
It just needs to be reflected in your motion that staff's recommended conditions and that the approval of the variances, except for what I heard was the third variance request. I think that was right.
That's correct.
Okay, is that fair? Okay.
All right, so you want me to take
All
a
right,
whack
any,
at it?
yeah, take a whack.
All right, I make a motion, we approve agenda item number 24-244 with staff's recommended conditions reflecting the third condition as what, not applicable, or what's the word?
Reflecting the
It's
denial of the third variance,
of
but
the
the
third,
approval of the other two.
right, and approval of the other two.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, any council discussion? Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve agenda item 24-244 with the denial of the third concurrent variance. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no unfinished business items. Moving on to new business, will city clerk please sound the item?
That item is consideration of a resolution to condemn property rights needed for Big Creek Greenway Project, Parcel 3 of, it's at the fee simple right-of-way, and 4,714.42 square feet is 0.108 acres of temporary easement for construction of slopes. The owners is Neelam Khan and Adnan Khan. It's agenda item number 24265. Our engineering project manager, Mr. Rob Del Ross.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The next four items are all about the same project. We're going to go over them individually, and I'd request votes for them individually. The first item is parcel 3 on the screen. Parcel 3 is a single family home, as soon as the displays comes up, along Webb Road near the intersection with Cogburn is where my cursor is today. We need 281 square feet of right-of-way and 4,714 square feet of temporary easement. We've made the offer fair market value at $33,000. We received a counter offer on August 6th. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to agree to terms with the property owner. Our city attorney always reminds us that this does not end negotiations. This just allows the city to move forward with the project without further schedule and cost delays. So there is a chance that we will not need to file this if the property owner is able to give us a counter number that we're able to accept under the terms of the reimbursable contract with the state. That concludes my presentation on this.
Okay. Any questions for Rob? Any public comment on this one?
There are none, sir.
Okay, open it for a motion.
Make a motion to approve agenda item number 24-265.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve agenda item number 24-265. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
That next item is consideration of a resolution to condemn property rights needed for Big Creek Greenway Project, Parcel 12, fee simple right-of-way, and 4,740.94 square feet of temporary construction easement for construction of slopes. The owner is Deerfield CC Delaware LLC. Agenda item number 24266. Mr. Del Ross.
Thank you. So parcels 12 and 13 are owned by the same owner. Parcel 12 is first on your agenda. The good news here is that we were able to receive a counter that we could accept after the agenda was published, but before it's before you tonight. So we're very confident working with the city attorney's office that we'll be able to close this and not need to file with the courts. However, just as a precaution, we would like to go ahead and have that approved by you tonight.
So can we take B and D together?
We need to
Yeah,
do
I
that.
think you could, technically, I've seen them done that way a lot of times. When I've got 50 on an agenda, we'll take them en masse. But I think given 4, let's just keep the record clear and do them one at a time.
Okay. Any questions on this item? Any public comment on this one?
There are none, sir.
Okay, open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion we approve agenda item number 24-266.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Cookerly and a second, just barely, by Councilman Johnson. To approve agenda item number 24-266. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Will you please sound the next item?
Mayor C is consideration of a resolution to condemn property rights needed for the Big Creek Greenway project as parcel number 4. It's temporary easement for construction of slopes. The owner is Samuel V. Moore and Susan Bosman Moore. It's agenda item number 24-267. Mr. Del Ross?
Parcel 4 is another single-family home right adjacent to parcel 3 that we just discussed. Unfortunately, we've not been able to agree to terms on this. We are optimistic that we won't need to file with the courts. We had an issue where the husband and wife own the home. Wife was returning back into town from being out of the country for a couple of weeks, literally yesterday. So we're waiting on a counter from them. We're, again, hopeful we won't have to file, but would like approval to file next week if we're not able to agree to terms.
Okay, so Rob, I just want to make sure I'm on the right page here. So parcel 4, what we're talking about, which was the one with the 2 owners, the same ones?
12 and 13,
Okay, so that's the next one we're going to vote on.
correct.
Okay, so make sure. Okay, good. All right, any questions? Any public comment on this?
There are none.
Okay, I open it for a motion.
Make a motion to approve agenda item number 24-267.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Haney and a second from Councilor Verhoff to approve agenda item number 24-267. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Mayor D is consideration of a resolution to condemn property rights needed for the Big Creek Greenway project. It's parcel number 13, 0.043 acres of fee simple right-of-way and 9,349.56 square feet of temporary construction easement for construction of slopes. It's the owner, Deerfield CC Delaware LLC. It's agenda item number 24-268.
Same description on this one as parcel 12. We received a counter that we're able to accept after the agenda was published, but before tonight. So we're working with the city's attorney's office to hopefully close that and not need to file. We're still seeking approval to file in the case of the city attorney's office finding some kind of error in title or something that would force us to use eminent domain in lieu of closing.
Okay, any questions for Rob? Any public comment?
There are none.
Okay, I'll close public comment and open it for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve agenda item number 24-268.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Verhoff and a second from Councilor Jacobus to approve agenda item number 24-268. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Mayor E is consideration of a resolution to dispose of a certain small and narrow strip of land from Milton City Park and Preserve to Warren Kirk Anderson at 795 Quarter Path Lane. Agenda item number 24-269. Our Public Works Director, Ms. Sarah Leaders.
Good evening. The state code as well as city code allow for disposition of small and narrow strips of land. And earlier this year, we adopted a policy and standard operating procedures for how we handle those requests as we get those in. Staff and the city's attorney's office have reviewed this request that's before you tonight. The requested area, along with the conditions that are part of the resolution, meet the requirements for disposal and facilitate the enjoyment of the highest and best use to the requesting owner's property. So just to highlight what is being requested here, this is just a clip of a portion of the Milton City Park and Preserve, with gray being the city's property. The red triangle here represents the requested area. It is approximately, it's a triangular shape, 50 feet wide at the widest point, and then narrows down to tie into an existing property pen about 321 feet long. We estimate this at around 7,800 square feet. There will be a survey performed if this resolution is approved to finalize what that exact area is. The purchase price is the same as what the Milton City Park and Preserve was purchased for at 78 cents per square foot. So it's going to be around a $6,000 transaction if it is approved tonight. And I'd be glad to answer any questions on this particular request or our process.
So he's parcel 11?
Correct.
Okay. Looking at that. Okay. All right. Any questions for Sarah? Okay. I guess I have one question. So 11A and 12, I'm just trying to figure out how it's going to end up like. Sorry. I know we talked about this.
So 11 it currently owns a piece on the back of 11A. So the property line for, I don't know if I can.
Can't figure it out.
So it will now do.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Something like that.
Okay.
They're just eliminating that
Got
pinch,
it. That makes sense.
point where they
I
have.
was having a hard time connecting the dots. That helped. Thanks.
No problem.
Any questions for Sarah? Do we have any public comment on this?
There are none.
Okay. Open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve agenda item number 24-269.
Second. Okay, a motion from Councilor Cookerly and a second from Councilor Haney to approve agenda item number 24-269. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Okay, will City Clerk please say on the next item?
Our final new business item is approval of a final plat revision. The name of the development is Linden Creek, located on Cogburn Road. It's land lot 690 and 751. It's District 2, Section 2. It's a final plat revision totaling 15.714 acres and a density of 0.70 units per acre. It's agenda item number 24270. Our land development manager, Ms. Tracy Wilds. Mayor, members of council, the Linden Creek subdivision is an 11-lot subdivision that was originally platted in 2021. Tonight, the applicant is seeking your approval for final plat revisions. Linden Creek is located on Cogburn Road. It's just east of the Countryside Pet Estates and just east there of Hopewell Road and Francis Road roundabout. The parcel is identified in the highlighted rectangle. This site plan reflects the changes that are being requested. The applicant purchased an additional strip of land at the rear of the property, approximately 1 acre in size, 1.3 acres in size. That additional land allowed the sizes for lots 4, 5, and 6 to increase. The property line between 6 and 7 has been modified. There is a drainage easement being requested along the rear of lots 1 through 6. That's identified on the slide in blue. The property line between lot 11 and the detention pond has been modified. And the developer has asked for an entrance modification to include a gate, an island to turn around, small walls, and reconfiguration of the curbing in that area. 4 of the 11 lots have been completed and they are CO'd. It is an active construction site. I do have the applicant here tonight and myself, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Tracy? Hearing none. Any public comment on this?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment and open it for a motion.
All right, well, in the absence of excitement, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve agenda item number 24-270.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve agenda item number 24-270. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Council have anything to report on? All right, hearing none. We got Touch a Truck this Saturday, right?
Yep.
At Stone Creek Church.
Yep.
So looking forward to that. We will now adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and pending litigation. Do I have a motion
Motion to adjourn
Second.
into executive session?
into executive session.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous.
to reconvene.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. So that was Johnson and Jacobus. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was Jacobus and Cooker.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.